Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out a really cool team with a slightly uncommon restricted duo in Dialga and Calyrex-Shadow Rider, featuring an Assault Vest Huge Power Azumarill. This team got top 4 at a regional championships in Taiwan a couple of weekends ago, and Azumarill is a Pokemon that we don't really see very frequently in the format, so that's the main reason I wanted to feature this team, but it also has some other fun tricks that I'll talk about briefly. So, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team. This was built by a player called Hope Guitar, so thank you to them for featuring this team, and congratulations to them on an amazing tournament run. I'll link the results for that specific regionals down in the description below if you want to check it out as well, and as always, I'll do a quick breakdown, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. And thanks so much as always for watching. If you do enjoy, please show your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. So, this team has a lot of interesting stuff. First of all, Azumarill in itself is a really cool option in the format because with the Assault Vest, it's actually really bulky, and there are a lot of Pokemon that basically just can't deal very much damage into Azumarill. For example, opposing Calyrex-S. Azumarill is also cool because of Steel Roller. There's a decent amount of terrain in the format, especially from NDD, and so Azumarill can just like absolutely crush those terrains and also be able to do increased damage via Steel Roller. Azumarill is also not a bad Dynamax option between Max Quake, Max Steel Spike, Max Geyser, and Max Fairy. You have really good type coverage, right? And so this is just like a Pokemon that's relatively difficult to KO. And the thing is, what's good against Azumarill? Regieleki, Rillaboom. This team does a really good job at covering some of the most common non-restricted Pokemon. For example, Leki just doesn't have the best time into a Landorus Incarnate form. Rillaboom doesn't have the best time into a team with Incineroar and Dialga. And so you have decent ways to handle some of the things that would normally give Azumarill a lot of trouble. You've also got Dialga and Calyrex-Shadow Rider as a restricted duo, which is really interesting. Calyrex is more supportive on this team with Snarl and Will-O-Wisp, but that doesn't mean that it can't sweep, right? One of the things with Calyrex-Shadow Rider is if you can save it for the late game and then just come out and you've like whittled away at everything, with Focus Sash, you can just sweep endgames with Astral Barrage and Astral Barrage. It's also a decently effective lead because it can pressure with Snarl and Will-O-Wisp immediately, which is really nice. And Regieleki and Calyrex-Shadow Rider is one of the scariest offensive duos that you can go up against as a lead matchup in this format. And so because you have Max Speed Aleki and Max Speed Calyrex, right, you just pressure either Electro Web or Dynamax Aleki in turn 1 with Max Airstream and just spam Astral Barrages. And the thing is that there aren't that many Pokemon that can reliably take like 2 Astral Barrages and a max move from Aleki, especially because Calyrex cancels out opposing abilities or opposing berries specifically. And so it's like normally your way against it is maybe resisting the attacks and having a Citrus, but it's like Max Airstream, Astral Barrage, even into things that resist it can absolutely crush you. The other thing to note with the Aleki here is that it is Wild Charge and Bounce. It has Electro Web as well, but you're more physically oriented, and so you can catch your opponents off guard with that Max Airstream and also just hitting from the physical spectrum instead. To round out the team, you've got Safety Goggles Dialga. We actually just featured Dialga in the previous episodes, but I think Dialga, once again, a really interesting restricted that still hasn't really fully been like kind of explored or tapped into. And Safety Goggles Dialga is really cool because this set alone gives the Palkia Calyrex Ice Rider teams an absolute nightmare. With those teams, it's frequent to lead something like NDD plus Palkia or Amoonguss plus Palkia, and then Dialga and Azumarill on this team just make that an absolute nightmare matchup. And one thing to talk about is, regional metas, right? Like the meta that this team performed well in does have a lot of Palkia and Calyrex Ice Rider teams. And so it makes sense that this team kind of has many good answers into those compositions. And so Goggles Dialga is just an absolute nightmare for Amoonguss and also makes it tough for Venusaur. And you can, lead with more confidence against Venusaur specifically. Finally, you've got Classic Incineroar and then Life Orb Sheer Force Landorus I. This is specifically a Pokemon that is very good into the Sun matchup because you can even Dynamax Landorus into opposing Charizards, or just not Dynamax and use regular Life Orb plus Sheer Force and pressure with Stone Edge or Grass Knot into Groudon, for example, or Power into Incineroar. So the Lando is very much made for the Sun matchup, but it can have very favorable outcomes against Sun because it can outspeed most of the Pokemon, if not all, other than Zacian, and pressure with a lot of damage, and can even be a Dynamax option potentially into those compositions. So I'm really excited to try this team out and see what Azumarill specifically can do. And question of the day, I'm curious. I haven't really explored too many Pokemon games after playing them for the first time, so I'm curious what Pokemon games you think have aged the best and have good replay value. So let me know in the comment section below, and let's get started. First match here, and we're up against Venusaur, Porygon, Calyrex, Kyogre, Rillaboom, and Incineroar. Okay. I think EV Azumarill is actually really interesting here. I don't think I want to bring Landorus. Dialga with Goggles is really nice, especially against the Rillaboom, not the Rillaboom, the Venusaur. I could bring Gieleki as a max option because of Airstream into Venu and Max Lightning into Kyogre, but like, I think I'm down for Dialga Calyrex-I, Azumarill Incid in the back. It's also pretty interesting seeing Venusaur without Sun on my opponent's team. Like, Porygon Venu with Groudon or Torkoal in the back is one of the scariest combos because, like, you could either threaten Trick Room with Porygon 2 or threaten, like, the Sun mode with Venusaur, but given that they don't actually have a Sun setter here, that's promising. I guess I'm wondering if anything even just gets Manual Sunny Day on that comp. They are going to go with Venu and Porygon. Okay. So, like, I could just Snarl turn 1 with the Calyrex. I could switch Calyrex out. They are probably going to angle to set up a Trick Room here. Honestly, expect Venusaur to not Dynamax either. Trick Room going up, how much of a problem is that for me? It's not necessarily the end of the world. I think turn 1 I'm actually down to just Flash Cannon and Snarl. I could protect Calyrex. If Venu maxes, I honestly think that's fine, because then it means Calyrex and Kyogre in the back aren't Dynamaxing. The other thing to watch out for here is my Dialga, like, getting hit by an Eerie Impulse, because let's say I max Dialga turn 1 to match Venu max, then I do have to be very careful, because let's say I Wormwind Snarl, maybe we don't knock out Venu, then Porygon gets an Eerie Impulse onto me, and that's really bad. So they actually are going to commit the Dynamax with Venusaur. Okay. Which makes sense. My main question here is whether or not they click Trick Room. Because it could be like Max Quake into Trick Room turn 1. It could be Vine Lash into Eerie Impulse. Vine Lash into Trick Room. Foul Play is a possibility from their end as well. But getting a Snarl off onto Venu before it gets an attack off is always very appreciated here. Okay, we are faster than the Venu as well, so that's good to confirm. We actually get a special defense drop from the Flash Cannon, which is nice. Vine Lash honestly does not do that much to us. And I presume Porygon will set up Trick Room now. So I honestly kind of want to Dynamax Azumarill in this game, given the current position, but I think maxing Dialga is a possibility. The main thing to worry about if I max it is the threat of that Eerie Impulse, as I mentioned. Because of that special defense drop, like, I honestly think I can Roar of Time here. Probably want to switch Calyrex out into Incin right now. Like, I'm thinking we just Roar of Time. I guess I could reverse Trick Room as well. That might be the better option. But I'm not opposed to just clicking Roar of Time here and then switching out into Incineroar. Also, one thing to know here is that there's a decent chance that Venusaur is in Chlorophyll and it's like Overgrow instead. I think that's the name of the other ability. Okay. See if they have Eerie Impulse or Foul Play. It is just Foul Play, okay. They could Max Quake for a Spadef boost here is the thing, right? Yeah, they are going to. Shouldn't KO Dialga though. Yep. Even if Roar Time does not pick up the KO here, it's not the end of the world. Ultimately, what we're doing is just like stalling out my opponent's Dynamax decently effectively. I'm gonna miss Roar of Time though. That sucks. Okay. That is really unfortunate. It's a terrible time to miss. I think I'm just going to go on the offense here and Flare Blitz and Flash Cannon into Venu. That was just, yeah. I could have Dynamaxed Dialga there, obviously, to get the 100% accuracy. And they have Ally Switch, too. So it's Ally Switch, Foul Play, Trick Room. Those last two turns were just real sad, honestly. Flare Blitz gets a burn, at least. That's kind of nice. And they're going to go for another Quake. Yep. Onto Dialga. Okay. I mean, all things considered, it could be a lot worse. Like, I did at least manage to stall out my opponent's Dynamax, and now, like, Azumarill is in an interesting angle to Dynamax in this game, but yeah. I don't know if Roar of Time would have knocked out the Venusaur. We were in that position to begin with because I had a special defense drop from Flash Cannon, so, like, can't complain too much. My opponent's just getting so much value out of Vine Lash in this game. So let's bring Azumarill out. Still have one more turn of Vine Lash to deal with here. We're going to Dynamax Azumarill here. It's just whether or not they ally switch. But I guess I can just split my attacks here and guarantee a knockout onto Venu. So Dynamax. I guess the question is, does Steel Spike even actually KO Venusaur? I'm not sure. Yeah. 2 turns of Trick Room left. Defense boost is really valuable for fighting against Calyrex. So I will Steel Spike into Porygon here and just Flare Blitz into Venusaur. We'll see if they ally switch. Dynamax Azumarill in this game is definitely interesting. Calyrex-Shadow Rider, even with a single Astro Barrage into their Calyrex and Kyogre, is also really valuable. I'm trying to think how else I could have led into Porygon plus Venu, but I don't think Gieleki nor Landorus really offer that much there. Okay, they do go for an ally switch. So we'll see if Steel Spike actually can KO here. I'm honestly not sure. Okay, it does pick up the knockout. That's very nice. Because Azumarill is in an angle where it can just get a lot of knockouts very quickly right now. The other question is, does Porygon even have Recover? Like, what is the final attack? Because we've seen Ally Switch, Trick Room, and Foul Play so far. It's great damage from Blitz as well. Okay. It's the last turn of Trick Room right now, so Instinct can angle for a Parting Shot. I do have to be careful, though, about, like, Parting Shot before my opponent attacks, and then, like, they just KO whatever's coming in. So I might actually just be better to attack with Instinct here. Depends on what comes in. If you bring out Kyogre, no, they're going to bring out Calyrex. Okay. I do have this defense boost. Could see them ally switching. Like, what do I want to do here? I'm down to Steel Spike into the Porygon slot. Steel Spike into Porygon. Which would always go off first. Okay, so I'm down to double up on a Porygon. I guess the one problem is if Porygon actually has Recover here. Yeah, they go for an ally switch. Okay. Cool. I don't think this KOs Calyrex. The other question is whether or not their weakness policy and also how fast they are relative to Instant. That actually almost picked up the knockout though. Wow. If you're not policy here, like maybe Instant actually just gets the Parting Shot off. I could have Flare Blitz there instead then. Yeah, I mean, like, bringing in Calyrex isn't actually good here. Flare Blitz would have been, like, a potentially game-winning play. That's okay, though. I'm curious on the item on it. Could be AV. You'd expect high horsepower into Calyrex right now, right? Yep. Okay, so I bring Ensign back in. If I had gone for Flare Blitz there onto either slot, we'd be in a much nicer spot right now. So I can bring Ensign back out, right, which gives me Fake Out. And I can just KO the Calyrex, but then presumably their last one's Kyogre, so then it's a 2v1. So it'll be really close, because then they'll do just Water Spout into presumably Thunder. And there's a chance they're not running Thunder, but I wouldn't count on that. Yeah, I'm just going to Steel Spike here and Fake Out. If I had Flare Blitz there, we would have KO'd the Calyrex. Okay, they protect, that's fine. We KO through the protect. Mudokyo'd Calyrex, then they bring out Kyogre, but then the thing is I can sack the Incin, knock out Porygon, and then I get Calyrex out for a single Snarl or Astral Barrage, and that probably just allows me to win the game. So it's 2v1 now. They're going to have Kyogre as their last one. We have Assault Vest on the Azumarill, but my fear here is that I can't take a Water Spout into Thunder combination on Azumarill, even with AB. It's just too much damage. I guess there's also a chance they didn't bring Azumarill or Kyogre as their last one for some reason, but I think that would be kind of bizarre. Could be the case, but it should be Kyogre here. So that turn with Incineroar was questionable, and I had even mentioned like the possibility of underspeeding my opponent, or outspeeding my opponent, I should say, under Trick Room. So, like, we're gonna play rough here. I guess there's a chance they just go for Thunder, not thinking about the AV as well. That would actually maybe allow me to win. Play rough and just Throat Chop here. Like, if I were them, I would Water Spout into Thunder. Okay, they actually go for Origin Pulse rather than Spout. That is a little bit less damage on Azumarill. Maybe Azumarill can take a Thunder here. We'll see. Because I think Play Rough Aqua Jet should be a KO. Okay, we don't miss that Play Rough, so that's good. It's really good damage onto it. I don't think I can really afford to go for anything else here. It's not like a crit Aqua Jet gets the KO. Oh, Liquidation into Aqua Jet actually should get the knockout here thanks to Rain, so I don't want to risk the miss. So we'll see if they have Thunder, whether or not it KOs us. And there's no Thunder! It's just Origin Pulse. I think even if this crits, we survive. Yeah, that was kind of close. But I think Liquidation and Aqua Jet should get it for us here. Oh my gosh, Azumarill, you were so clutch in this one. Let's go. The main thing for Azumarill to succeed in this game is that we needed to like make sure my opponent didn't have Venusaur for it, right? So like being able to handle Venusaur early was really important. So did miss that Roar of Time, but ended up being okay. That Porygon was a nightmare because it had Ally Switch as well, but fortunately no Recover at any point meant that we actually had it on a timer, and the Flare Blitz Burn was also quite fortunate because it just gave us a lot of free residual damage that we otherwise wouldn't have had. So, you know, yes, I missed the Roar of Time, but I also had a lot of good RNG there where like we had the special defense boost from that, or a drop from Flash Cannon, and then the Flare Blitz Burn as well. So then the question is like, how could I have played better in this game? Like, Aleki, yes, it does have max Airstream, but I think it's still so weak into Venusaur, especially because Koba is a decently common item on Venu. So I'm honestly happy with the lead here. The main question is whether or not I could have considered maxing Dialga instead, but without knowing whether or not there was Eerie Impulse on Porygon, I really don't want to commit to Dynamaxing Dialga. So I think maxing Azumarill was fine. The main play was the turn that they went for the Ally Switch, and I went for Parting Shot instead, because like late game Calyrex was decent in that game, even just for a single Snarl, because it would KO both Porygon and Calyrex Ice Rider, and then getting a single Astral Barrage on a Kyogre means Astral Barrage into Play Rough is probably a KO as well. So it could have been better to like Flare Blitz in that angle, I'm thinking, rather than Parting Shot there, because Parting Shot didn't really accomplish very much for me, so I think like that's the one really big play I would point to. But Azumarill was absolutely awesome in this game, so I'm really happy about its performance, but let's keep things going. Next match here, and we've got Palkia plus Zacian. Okay. Azumarill's really good into Palkia, actually. It's not bad into Zacian, but I obviously have to watch about Behemoth Blade. I mean, I'm wondering whether or not there's really room for Lando-I, but I just don't think this is the right matchup for it either. This might be Adi's Palkia Zacian team from a while back, which I don't think I actually used on the channel, but we went up against it a lot. So I think like Dialga is the centerpiece here because it's got a very favorable matchup into both Palkia and Zacian. And the goggles means that Amoonguss is actually not very good against it at all. So like, I'm kind of down for a Calyrex Dialga lead again with the Azumarill and Incin. You could bring Aleki in this one, especially as a Dynamax option, thanks to like a really powerful Max Lightning or Airstream. I don't want to lead Incin because I don't know 100% what the Thundurus set is on my opponent's team, and if I lead Incin into a Defiant Thundurus, that's just really bad news. And Calyrex is decent here because of like Snarl pressure as well as Will-O-Wisp potential onto Thundurus or Zacian. So what's interesting is that the Calyrex on this team can deal a lot of damage, but can also just give you the early support that you need to like successfully set up Trick Room. And I think Azumarill is also a pretty cool Dynamax option in this game, although Amoonguss is going to be one major problem for it. So I think it's more likely that I'm going to end up Dynamaxing the Dialga and using regular Azumarill, but we'll see. As always, you want to be flexible. Let's gonna be Incident Grim. Okay. I mean, given this lead, I honestly think I just want to Dynamax Dialga Steel Spike into the Grimmsnarl immediately. And then just protect Calyrex on turn 1. I think that's decently strong. I guess my question is if Grimmsnarl has enough special defense investment where I would actually survive a Steel Spike after Light Screen. We'll see. But I think this is honestly a decent lead to run into on turn 1 because Incineroar can't really fake out, right? So like they're probably going to Parting Shot into the Dialga slot. It does suck to get a special defense drop, or sorry, special attack drop early on. But I think that trade is worth it if it means a knockout on a Grimmsnarl. Because the thing is then, you have what, Palkia plus Zacian in the back. I can burn your Zacian with Will-O-Wisp. I can Snarl your Palkia to decrease your special attack. Dialga at -1 still does a ton of damage to both of those Pokemon, and also get a defense boost here. Now, that defense boost might not actually matter because most Zacians run Sacred Sword anyway, but we'll see. So they're going to hard stay in with both Pokemon, that's not surprising. Yep, it is just Light Screen. I protected here just to be safe, like I could have clicked Astral Barrage or Snarl instead, but if they actually went for a Dark-type attack onto the Calyrex, that's obviously a really strong turn 1. We don't knock out Grim, but I actually think that might be okay because it means Astral Barrage can potentially finish it off and means getting a special attack boost on the way as well. And they do Parting Shot into Dialga. Okay. Like, it could be better, right? I could have knocked out the Grimmsnarl, but I don't honestly think this is the end of the world. Because the thing is, now you have to bring out something that's pretty vulnerable to Dialga, whether it be Zacian or Palkia. I guess there's a chance they dropped one of the two and brought Thundurus instead in this angle. What would really be a curveball is Amoonguss coming out, but yeah, they're going to bring Palkia out. So this is what's interesting about Palkia coming out. Like, me going for Max Wormwind onto that slot is so dang obvious that it's like, do you consider switching out, actually? Because you could go into Zacian. I feel like they're just going to stay in here, but if they went into Zacian, like, I could get so much value out of Max Quaking or Steel Spiking that slot right now. I also could Snarl instead of Astral Barrage right now, but I do kind of want the knockout onto Grimmsnarl. Normally, I think I don't know, I would Quake here, but the thing is, Whirlwind is so much damage, and they only have one real max option in Palkia. And they stay in. Perfect. I feel like it's really risky to just hard switch out into Zacian, because if I just Astral Barrage Quake and, like, pick up a double knockout, that's just such bad news for you, right? So the other interesting question here is, what does the Grimmsnarl go for? Do you go for a Reflect? It makes sense for them to just click, like, Thunder Wave or Scary Face into my Calyrex right now. Okay, they actually Thunder Wave but target the Dialga. I'm kind of surprised about that, but I'll take it. Cool. This also means no Reflect, by the way, which is a really big deal, given that I have Azumarill in the back. Palkia can definitely just sweep me right now, though, so I have to be very careful about that. They go for Max Quake. Yeah, that makes sense. Onto Calyrex. Okay, that's pretty interesting how they split their damage there, but I'll take it. Like, they have a special defense boost and Light Screen is up right now, so fortunately no full para. That was a really scary turn. I think if we got full para there, I would be really stressed. I mean, it's still not like we're in an amazing position, but I'll take it. Curious what they bring out now. We can angle to set up Trick Room in the late game. Azumarill under Trick Room is pretty good into my opponent's team. Azumarill in general matches up really well into Palkia because it's like Wormwind and Geyser obviously don't do very much into it, but I think right now my opponent is just going to keep clicking Max Quake instead. Snarl was interesting to me as an option here. I think here I'm down to Snarl and then Max Quake into the Instant slot. The reason I'm not targeting Palkia is because, like, I'm not doing much with it anyway. But I miss Snarl. Okay. That stings. That's a big deal, but that's okay. Snarl is just one of those attacks that always feels like so bad missing because it's like pretty decent accuracy. They're going to go for Geyser. Now what's interesting here is if you Parting Shot, you do go out into the Zacian, and then I get a Quake onto the Zacian as it comes in. The problem is I can't protect either of my Pokemon right now that are remaining in the back. Okay, so they do Parting Shot me here. I could bring in Incin. Then I'd have Fake Out, they would Geyser. Then I could set up Trick Room, because it's my last turn of max. Okay. Full para here would be nasty to deal with. But we don't get full paired, which is nice. Okay. Like, I'm looking towards a late game Azumarill sweep ideally here, but yeah, with screens and the drops on Dialga, my damage output is just so insignificant right now. But it's still important to get a boost. Like, I'm just mainly frustrated because now, like, does Palkia KO Dialga with the special defense boost? I don't think so. So, like, the play I can go for here is just Fake Out into Zacian and Trick Room. Now, the main interesting thing here is Fake Out onto Zacian is so obvious. What I can actually do is just hard pivot Incin back out into Azumarill. Go out into Azumarill here and then just Trick Room. The one risk in this is that my opponent could just, like, Sacred Sword plus Quake into Dialga. My problem here is if my opponent switches Zacian out into Incin and then Geysers into Incin, I feel like I'm in a really bad spot. So I think I am going to make the switch here because Fake Out's normally, like, the obvious play to make and go for a Trick Room. If we actually get this Trick Room up, yeah, they switch. Cool. The one downside here is Azumarill is going to eat up the Intimidate, but that's fine. Even with Intimidate, like, Azumarill under Trick Room is going to be in an amazing position, so just have to hope to not get full para this turn or get crit by a Max Quake. But I think if I'm them, I'm probably clicking Geyser into the Incin slot right now. And that's where missing that Snarl really hurts, because Azumarill would just take so much less damage if we had brought them down to -1, right? But, once again, part of the game. That was so much damage. Jeez. And I get parried. It happens, though. I honestly think I put myself in a pretty good position to succeed here. And, like, when you let yourself have the opportunity to get parried for so many turns, yeah, that's bound to happen. It's still not over by any means either here. Yeah, I think I will just click Liquidation into Incin and Trick Room here. It's just like, I feel like if we got Trick Room up there, I actually would just be in a game-winning position, because then I can just Liquidation, Incin, Roar of Time, Palkia, and Azumarill in the range just absolutely crushes it here. But there were multiple turns where I could have been full paired, right? And so if I wanted to deny the full pair, I needed to knock out Grimmsnarl on turn 1, and the best way to have done that was Astral Barrage into Max Steel Spike. Okay, they're gonna Fake Out Dialga. I should survive an Earth Power here with Azumarill. Actually target Dialga, okay. That is way too much damage. Yeah, given that damage, I think there's no way to win this game. Play rough onto Palkia may have actually been the smarter play here. Because, like, the problem is I just KO'd my opponent to give them a free switch in. So, some unlucky rolls here between the Snarl miss and the Snarl miss and then the full paras, but I think I could have played it better as well. And, like I said, I had the opportunity to just KO Grimm on turn 1. And at the end of the day, I think I was in a really good position to succeed in this game. So, yeah, it's not the end of the world. And it's still not 100% over yet. So, I'm going to switch Azu out into Incin right now. And still try to Trick Room. Like, what I can basically hope for is get the Intimidate off. Like, I could Fake Out into Palkia and play Rough It. Or I could hope for a Hydro Pump miss from Palkia right now, too. Okay, they went for Sacred Sword. Yeah, I could play. It might just be Hydro Pump here onto the Azumarill slot. Okay, it is Earth Power, which I will survive, but jeez, it's just so much damage. Is there really any chance to win given that damage output? I don't really think so. Because, like, Zacian just cleans up here. I see one path to victory, actually. It's let they don't protect Zacian here, and I KO it with the Fake Out into Liquidation. Yeah, because Azumarill can survive an Earth Power, I think. Good protect. Yeah. I could have doubled up onto the Palkia instead here. That was the other possibility. Oh, they actually just double. Okay, so Palkia I don't think even has Trick Room then, right? If you're running Earth Power and Protect. Geyser. We never saw Wormwind, though, I guess. With double Protect here, there was no chance at victory. That's why, like, getting parried the turn we tried to go for Trick Room was rough, but I think this was a really good game overall, and I think Azumarill would have been the MVP if Trick Room went up here, so I'm not too sad about it. It was just turn 1. I didn't really know that damage calc against Grim, and it surviving and actually getting a Thunder Wave onto Dialga prevented me from getting that Trick Room up successfully, right? Is there any way in which we can win right now? Their play is always to just Behemoth Blade, Azumarill, and Earth Power, but let's say they throw the game and they Earth Power, Azu, Sacred Sword, Incin. No, I still don't think there's an out here, to be honest. We'll play this turn out, but yeah, I don't really see a way to win. I needed them to get a little bit greedy here. Would have been interesting to see how it would have played out. Like, if I think if Trick Room went up here, we had this endgame. Because, like I said, it wasn't guaranteed yet because Dialga would still need to, like, get attacks off under Trick Room, but then there was very little stopping me from just clicking Liquidation and Roar of Time. And then I'd have Incineroar under Trick Room as well to deal with their Zacian, right? But the problem here is that they had both of their restricteds in this endgame. And so Light Screen just provided immense value as well as the parting shot. So I think the turn 1 Protect on Grimmsnarl, or sorry, on Calyrex was questionable because, like, I had the Focus Sash there anyway. So, like, Astral Barrage plus Steel Spike would have just guaranteed the knockout there. It would have prevented a Thunder Wave, which is a really big deal, and then I could Snarl or Will-O-Wisp as well. So, yeah, we did miss a Snarl. Yeah, I did get full parried, but I could have played better to be in a position where I could have avoided both of those, right? And it would have started with attacking with Calyrex on turn 1. So, it's good to learn that Steel Spike calc with Light Screen. You're just, yeah, you should not assume that you can pick up the KO there with Max Steel Spike. And I honestly just wasn't 100% sure there. But yeah, that's a very helpful calc to know. I think part of it is I'm used to playing with like Life Orb Dialga. So normally there's a little bit like extra burst in damage output. But Azumarill was still really awesome in that game, honestly. And like I said, if we had successfully gotten Trick Room up, I think it would have just completely swept that end game there as well. So nicely done by my opponent there. And let's just look for another. Wow, we see a Garchomp here as well as a Lapras. Okay, I feel like I'm playing the earlier days of Sword and Shield. Incin, Rilla, Zacian, Calyrex. So, this could be a pretty decent game for Regieleki plus Calyrex, truthfully. I love Azumarill, but I don't think this is the right matchup for it. It doesn't do much into Lapras. It's quite weak into Rillaboom. It's not that good into both of my opponent's restricteds. I kind of lean towards a Leki plus Calyrex lead, Dialga plus Incin in the back. Like, Azumarill was amazing for us in the first game. It could have been amazing for us in the second game if I did a better job setting up Trick Room for it. But in this game, I just think, you know, it's pretty weak in his Zacian. With Rillaboom, I have to worry about Grassy Glide and Woodhammer in itself. I don't think it's a great Dynamax candidate. I think Aleki or Dialga are much better max options. So, for all of those reasons, I think I'm going to drop it. Now, what's interesting here is that they don't bring Incin early, because Dynamax Aleki with Max Lightning is very powerful here, given that it's physical. Another reason I'm leading this is because I can just Electro Web into Astral Barrage. That's really good into Calyrex Zacian, for example. Lapras Calyrex, Lapras Zacian. Although I think it's more likely we see like a Fake Out user plus one of their main attackers in Zacian, Calyrex, or Lapras. But if it's like Rillaboom plus Lapras, it puts it's Garchomp. Okay, Garchomp and Lapras. That's interesting. So, like, the turn 1 play I want to make here is actually just Dynamax Aleki and Lightning into Lapras while Will-O-Wisping into Garchomp. Because of Unnerve, even if you're Lum on Garchomp, I'd survive. I mean, I guess the question is, do I really need a Dynamax Aleki here? It's just, we have physical Max Lightning, which can just obliterate Dynamax Lapras here. So I think I am down to Max Lightning here. Let's just make sure I'm going for the right Max Lightning from Wild Charge. Yep. Lightning into Lapras and Will-O-Wisp into Garchomp. That works for me. it's like scary because like you could just actually max Garchomp instead and just like max Quake into Aleki. So then my question is, does a burnt max Quake KO Aleki? Because if not, then I actually don't think that's that bad of a trade because it means Aleki gets a second attack off. And getting a max Airstream off with this to allow my Calyrex to outspeed everything is really valuable. Now the other play I could have contemplated was actually just like protecting Aleki and just Will-O-Wisping turn 1. But we'll see. Nice, and they max Lapras. I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like, Garchomp, decently powerful outside of Dynamax. Lapras, it's very, very weak compared to Gigantamax Lapras. Because then you also just have to worry about taking a regular electric type attack. And we're running physical Lackey rather than special, so they're probably not going to expect the physical burst, right? It's actually not enough to pick up a one-hit KO, but that's honestly fine. Like, we're at a point now where I can finish it off with a Astral Barrage, and that's really nice. And I don't really care about screens going up right now. Ooh, they are weakness policy, though. Okay. We do hit Will-O-Wisp, which is good. I'm mainly curious what Garchomp's going for right now. Man, Astral Barrage there may have just won me the game early, but... Okay, it's Stomping. That's fine. And your Life Orb Chomp, too. Stomping and Resonance. Cool, and they split their damage. Okay, that's actually... I think puts me in a game-winning position. And I know it's so early to call the game, but the reason why I think this is the case is because now... I get a free max Airstream off into the Garchomp slot, into an Astral Barrage. No, I guess the problem is because screens are up, I'm actually not sure I KO the Garchomp. But Incine's also really good into both of their final Pokemon. Okay. It was a shame Lapras survived that, so I wonder if they EV'd for it, but yeah, we're just gonna Airstream into Astral Barrage right now. I thought about protecting Calyrex here because like it makes sense for them to max guard, and so it's like I would get a little bit of chip with Airstream and then another Airstream into Astral Barrage I would think gets the KO. Yeah, they do go for the max guard. Ideally we just KO Garchomp here, but I'm not so confident on that with them getting screens up. Yeah, I think they'll survive. And then the interesting question is where did Garchomp target this turn? Calyrex is the obvious answer. Okay. What's really interesting is if you are Lum buried here and then you like knock out the Calyrex and then the Lum like activates because I fainted. The reason I didn't want to protect there was because if Lapras actually attacks, that's obviously rough. They can't be Lum, sorry. They have Life Orb, which we had obviously seen. I can bring out Dialga now. With the speed boost, I should outspeed Garchomp. And I've got Incin in the back to deal with their restricted duo, which is also good. Man, they really just survived with a sliver of HP with both Pokemon this game, though, which caused some issues. I'd actually rather Airstream Garchomp, right? Yeah. And Flash Cannon into the Lapras. Mainly because Lapras could theoretically go for a double protect right now. Airstream guarantees the KO on Garchomp even if it protects, allowing Dialga to outspeed and KO the Lapras. So this endgame's interesting. I have the numbers advantage, but I am obviously down a restricted Pokemon. If I had protected and they had indeed gone for like a Geyser onto Calyrex, yeah, it's a pretty bad trade, so I don't mind going for the Astral Barrage there, because I need that damage onto Garchomp, and that's reliable damage. What's mainly frustrating is I could have just clicked like Lightning into Astral Barrage turn 1, but you know, I don't want to risk Lapras not protecting, or sorry, Lapras protecting and then Garchomp Dynamaxing. The Will-O-Wisp covers for the max Garchomp option. Oh, interesting. Okay, so they dropped one of their restricteds. They didn't bring Calyrex, okay. So it's actually going to be Zacian plus Incin for the back then. That obviously works out nicely given that I have my Incineroar in the back, right? But I am dealing with screens right now, so I have to be careful about that. Dialga has a speed boost, but that's not enough to outspeed the Zacian right now. Plus 2 speed, minus 1 attack, 2 turns of electric terrain, 2 turns of screens on their end. Like, I lean towards switching out into Incin right now, but it actually might be worthwhile to just stay in and click Electro Web. Because after an Electro Web, I will outspeed the Zacian. So yeah, I'm down to Electro Web and Earth Power into Zacian here. Okay, there's Fake Out onto Aleki. Yep. Sacred Sword onto Aleki. Okay, cool. The other thing there, by the way, is I could obviously contemplate switching out into Incineroar, but I don't want Incineroar to take a Sacred Sword, right? The neutral Sacred Sword still really hurts from that angle. What's cool now is I can actually bring out Incineroar. Now I get an Intimidate onto both of my opponent's physical mons, and I can actually just click Fake Out into Zacian and set up Trick Room with my Dialga. Once we get Trick Room up, and the reason I'm okay with getting Trick Room up is because my Instant Flare Blitz just KOs their Zacian. So it's interesting they brought Instant here ultimately over their Calyrex-Shadow Rider, but it makes sense because Calyrex-Shadow Rider is not exactly particularly strong into Instant plus Aleki Calyrex on my end here. So Fake Out here just prevents any potential crits from Zacian. The one risk with Trick Room here is if their Instant is Taunt, I suppose, but even if they do, it's fine. Like, we're still in a position to win. It's just then maybe crits become a little bit scarier. But they just offer Flare Blitz, perfect. Okay, you can see there, it doesn't really do that much into Dialga, perfect. And we get late game Trick Room. So you can see, like, late game Trick Room can be really valuable, but I didn't manage to get it off in the last game because I let my opponent paralyze me, and so, you know, I had to flip coins. And like I said, as I've harped on very much, the best way around that in the previous game was to just have prevented my opponent from having that possibility by knocking out Grimmsnarl on turn 1. Now, granted, they could still Thunder Wave on turn 1, but Light Screen is far more likely. So, yeah. By going for Astral Barrage in that game, I also covered for it being Focus Sash Grim. Okay, Blitz KO Zacian there. Nice. Yeah, we should win the 2v1 here. Because the thing is, like, you're also just taking a lot of recoil from Flare Blitz with each hit. And with the Intimidate, we're always in a really good spot to get a burn there. But Dialga should survive another Flare Blitz this next turn, so... You know, I have Recovery with Citrus, and Earth Power actually, that's got to be a crit, right? Yeah, I don't think it would KO normally. But I think we were still fine there, because even if you crit Flare Blitz on the Dialga KO me the next turn, you take so much recoil, and then my Instant just wins the 1v1 against you, because I have the Intimidate and you don't, and I have a Berry. So it could be like a slightly more long and drawn out endgame there, but I think we're always fine. So yeah, I'm really curious about some of the sets there. So Astral Barrage, Psy Shock, Giga Drain, Protect, Focus Sash. Pretty standard Zacian here. It's Admit Max rather than Jolly Max. AB Rillaboom, Figgy Instant, Policy Lapras, as you can see here. 223 and 116 special defense, 107 defense. I'm curious what the damage calc is there for a one-hit KO, and then just max Garchomp. Garchomp's a pretty cool option, by the way, like you can use against Sun teams, because it's like decently valuable into Charizard, as well as Incineroar, right? So, yeah, ultimately, like, with my opponent having brought the Incineroar rather than Calyrex, they had a lot less late-game offense, and my final Pokemon being Instant just made it really tough for that duel to thrive. But if they had Calyrex plus Zacian, like, Instant still does really well into both of those, and, like, I didn't think they had a great way to deny the Trick Room from Dialga in the end game. And so once we get Trick Room up, we're in a pretty prime position to sweep because we have the speed advantage. But this game was scary because, like, on turn 1, Garchomp could potentially Dynamax, and then, like, we actually missed the knockout onto Lapras, which was also unfortunate. So, yeah, I'm curious about that calc. But either way, it was a really, really fun set of games here. I just wish Azumarill could have clutched it out for us in game 2 as well. But, you know, earlier I was like, oh, I'm surprised my opponent went for Thunder Wave onto Dialga in that game, but it was a nice way to just deny me attacks. And at that point, they also don't know how fast Dialga is relative to Palkia, so to guarantee an outspeed was also a smart play, right? And yeah, I think like in that game, we had multiple plays I could have done better, despite the relatively poor RNG. Yeah, I could have just denied Thunder Wave on turn 1, and that would have completely changed the outcome of the game, I think. So that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.